Positive Lens Podcast. I'm your host, Scott T. Each week, we will bring you positive law enforcement news stories from across the globe, shared by departments and citizens like yourself. In our Getting to Know Your Local Leo segment, we will speak with a member of the law enforcement community about everyday life and most things non-law enforcement, as we hope to adjust your focus so you see that members of your local law enforcement community are not much different than you and me.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 24. In this Getting to Know Your Local Leo episode, you will meet 7-year law enforcement veteran, SWAT team member, and school resource officer of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Devonta Richardson. He is not just a police officer, but also a father, entrepreneur, founder, and co-founder of the Welcome to the Street newsletter and podcast. In this enjoyable and laid-back episode, Devonta shares stories from his early days in high school, his career aspirational switch from the scrubs to the uniform, and the transition from big city Atlanta to small town Ohio. Plus, we will learn about the great support he received while going through a divorce at his brand new department and the joy of being a mentor to the children at the school resource officer. Please welcome to the podcast, school resource officer and SWAT operator from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Devonta Richardson.
Thank you for having me here, Scott. I'm happy to be here, man.
A pleasure, Devonta. Love having you on the show.
Yeah.
You know, for those who are unfamiliar with where you're located, here in Monroe County, they probably think South Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are in Monroe County?
Yeah. So, there's a Monroe County in every state. And that gets a little bit confusing. Even here, like people call it and make complaints. And it's like, dude, that's in Monroe County, like New York. That's not even here. But I'm in Monroe County, Ohio. It's a little small rural area. We're right next to West Virginia, not too far from PA. So we're on the east side of Ohio. So that's where I am, in a very rural part of Ohio.
Which, like, Ohio is largely made up of small town America, right? 3,000 population towns spread throughout the whole state.
It is. It's something new. I'm originally from Georgia. I know we're probably going to get into that. And when I came up here, like the metropolitan area around Atlanta is like pretty big. And I came up here, and it's like as soon as you leave the big cities, it's just farm. Just I'm like, what in the world is this place? It's Ohio. It's Ohio. It's different.
It is very different. Like I said, I have family up there myself, and when I visit, it's acclimating to a different area, but it's cool. It's just different.
Mm-hmm. And where were you originally from again?
I'm originally from New York, but
Okay.
I spent most of my life growing up in Florida.
Okay.
And now we're hosting here out of New Mexico, where I've been for almost 11 years.
Yeah, so Ohio is very different from most of those. Yeah.
100%. It is 100% different. And like I said, I get to go up there because I have family there, so I get to go check it out and hang out. But like you said, the population town of 3,000, and I think it's like 2 streetlights, and that's the whole town.
Yeah, it's rural America for you.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But you know what's cool about rural America? You still find good restaurants. You still find mom and pop shops that have good food.
Oh,
Maybe
I'm
not
probably going to get in
Monroe.
trouble for this. That's one thing I'll always get. I'm like, the food is just, it's not the Southern comfort food. I love that Southern food. And it's just, maybe I'm biased. I'm homesick and I miss home. But I'm like, they don't make it like they make it down in Georgia.
I will give you that. I will give you that because, in New Mexico, I probably shouldn't criticize where I've been for a while either, but
Yeah.
I'm used to a different flavor style of food as well, whether it was New York or if it was in Florida. And my wife as well. She loves, she's Hispanic and she loves her Hispanic food. And people think New Mexico has it, but New Mexico has New Mexican food. It's not necessarily the same as Hispanic food that you have from Miami.
Really?
So, yeah, it's very different. And, so I guess you could say the rural America towns in Ohio have the mom and pop food, but it just doesn't satisfy the cravings, though, of the Southern food.
Right. Yeah. I'm a Southern guy at heart. So, I'm like my Southern food. Nobody can do it like they do it in the South. Okay.
They can't. It is true. Southern food is very different.
Yep.
But let's talk about that. So I know you moved your way up to Ohio, and you can tell us about how we got to that journey, but you're from the Atlanta area. So tell us, born, raised, grew up there?
Yeah, I was born and raised, grew up in the metro Atlanta area, just outside of Atlanta, in this area called Clayton County, Forest. I lived in that whole county, but yeah, that's where I'm from. It's near the airport area out there. So it's a very busy area. That's where I first started policing. Much different than the rural team. Big change.
So tell us, what made the move from Atlanta to Ohio? Like you said, I know the area from really the airport more than anything else. It had more stopovers from Delta, I think, in Atlanta than any other place.
Yeah.
So I haven't really ventured too much into Atlanta, but tell us, that move is pretty drastic.
It is pretty drastic. So I think there's a few things that make people move. It's usually like marriage or a woman or something like that, or money for a job.
Right.
I was previously married. My ex-wife was from up here, so she wanted to be closer to home. So we moved up here to Ohio, and it brought me up here, and I've been here ever since.
And you're going to be there for a long time now.
Yeah, be here for a long time. So,
all right. So growing up, you're in a big city, but what was the life in the Richardson household growing up?
so I grew up. It was just a single parent, just my mom. I was raised by my mom. Had 2 younger brothers. We were very Christian, so we spent a lot of time at church and things like that. But growing up was pretty fun. Like I'd say, I grew up in a pretty like loving household. My mother always, I mean, we were poor, but she always made the best for everything. We always had everything we needed. So that was what my household was like growing up. I mean, it was pretty good childhood. So.
And mom's cooking home with you, Southern cooking.
Southern cooking, man. Southern cooking. And then going to church, like all the church gatherings, man. I was a big kid for a while. Eating, man.
But but those are memories that you can't replace them. Like I said, and those memories and those times shaped you who you are today.
That's right. They did.
So it's really cool. So when you were in school, though, outside of church, what were some of the things that you were doing? What were some of the things that we would find you doing if you're not in the classroom and not at church?
Oh.
And not eating, not in the classroom.
So I was big into the medical field
Okay.
when I was in school. Like I was determined that I was going to be a male nurse right, when I was in school. So I was big with the medical program in school. Like I'd wear like a little lab coat, be checking blood pressures, doing things like that. Half the time people didn't know like I was a student there half the time. So I was always doing things like that. My junior year, kind of always had this entrepreneur spirit. My junior year, I was the candy man at school. We're talking about we're going to get away from food, but we can't do it.
You're the guy selling the candy bars at 50 cents a pack, $1 pack.
I was the guy selling the candy bars at school, always like trying to make a little bit of extra money, trying to do this. Everybody kind of knew me from that. And then my senior year, I like to say that I retired. I stopped selling candy, and I started dressing a little bit nicer. Started kind of like, I was like, man, I want to change. Like I want to dress a little bit nicer. So we were poor,
right.
but I used to go to like Value Village to the thrift stores all the time.
Yeah.
And I had my suits from going to church. So I'd have like I'd like go find a blazer and have like a dress shirt, have it untucked and have a suitcase. And it was so different.
You were wearing it to school your senior year?
Yeah, I was wearing it to school the senior year. Actually, that actually got me best dressed, man.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah, man. I was like, man, this is what I wanted to do. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
The fact that you actually took that step, the transition from your junior year to the senior, you reinvented yourself.
Yeah, I think that's always, now that we're talking about that, I think that's always been something like I've always wanted change and just wanted to be something different, wanted to improve myself, wanted to try different things. And so I think that was part of that when I was a teenager, just exploring that, trying to try something different, see what something else is like.
So you're an entrepreneur, but were you in sports as well? Were you in activities? Or you're in church? Were you in choir?
No, choir. No, I wasn't in the choir. Trust me, nobody wants to hear me sing. No choir.
So what were the talents that you had that we don't know about yet?
Yeah, so a lot of people, I don't know if I have any hidden talents, but what a lot of people don't know is I wasn't in the choir, but I was in the orchestra.
Okay, all right.
I played viola for a while, and
wow.
That's about my only secret talent. A lot of people don't know that, and I've kind of buried that a little bit. Nobody needs to know that.
You just let the world know.
Yeah, I was an orchestra nerd. I didn't want to be like everybody else and be like in band because I feel like that's what everybody was doing. I was like, I want to do something different. Let me do orchestra. Let me try that, and I actually really enjoyed it.
And it is very different. It's a very different type of music.
It is.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So Justin Sharp, you're the candy man to the sharp man. Where does police officer come into it? What was the light bulb that said, I want to be a police officer? Was it the uniform or was it an experience?
No, I had no intention of being a police officer. I never thought I'd end up as a police officer. I knew that I wanted to help people. And I think when you're young, like there's so many ways you can help people. You can really help people in any type of role. But, I was like, medical field, this is kind of what I want to do, I think. So got to college. That's what I decided to do. When I was about 20 years old, I was like, I'm ready to get out of my parents' house. So I moved out, had some roommates, things were good. I was in college, I was working full time. Then I got accepted into the nursing program. And I was like, everybody's like, man, this is difficult. Like, you're gonna be working full time, going to school. You might not be able to make it.
Yeah,
So I was
that's
like, oh,
true.
I don't really want to flunk out of school. I've got roommates. I can't stop working because then how am I gonna
The bills
pay?
gotta be paid.
Yeah, how am I gonna pay my little portion of the rent? So I started looking at things, and I was like, huh. I probably need to take some time out from school to work for a little bit to save up some cash so I don't have to work as much. All my friends are firefighters. Right? And I was
Okay.
like, I don't know if I really want to be a firefighter because all my friends are firefighters. Like, that's just not this. So I was like, oh, what can I do? I'm looking at things like electrician. What can I do? That makes like a decent amount of money that I can stack up. And then I was dating this girl at the time, and she kept telling me I need to watch like Live PD. And I was like, oh, it's just another like cops thing. I don't know. So
Right.
I finally got around to watching it, and that light bulb went off. I was like, I saw cops like the way they talk with people, right? It wasn't just like arresting people, taking people to jail, but like they talk people down out of these crisis situations, right?
Okay.
They were giving people a break, they're educating people. And I realized there were so many things in law enforcement that I could do to help people and that I wouldn't really get bored because it's something new. And I was like, I was looking at it and I was like, man, I think this is for me. Like, I think this is something that like I'd like to do. I never really thought about it, but like, maybe this is like for me. So I just started applying it a bunch, and I started looking at the pay, and I was like, it's actually kind of decent pay. I was like, I can try this out, and I was like, we'll just see how it goes. In worst case scenario, I'll just go back to college and go to nursing school. I started doing it, and dude, I fell in love with it. One of my first calls was I actually got a life-saving award for this one, but it was a woman who was unconscious and who had overdosed, and so we did
Okay.
CPR. And after doing that, I was like, I don't really know if I like dealing with like sick people and like unconscious. Like when EMS got there, I was like, dude, you guys can have this. And I was like, maybe, maybe I am a bit of a germaphobe. Maybe like this whole medical thing wasn't really for me, but I do like this. I like still being involved with it a little bit. But then when EMS comes, like, hey, you guys can take over from here. I'm just gonna step back.
Yeah.
But
Turn that over to the guys who really want.
yeah, who really want to do it. And so once I started doing it, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I love doing. This is the way that I love helping people. Like, this is the way that I want to help people. So I never
and
looked back.
there is a parallel to nursing, right? Nursing does
Mm-hmm.
have, it is a service focus. It's a different type of service mentality. And, they are on the front lines, like I said, with purely healthcare. So you shifted to your role, but the helping of people is still the same. It's just a different way of helping them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a different
But
way of
I will
helping
say,
people.
the nursing programs are tough. So,
Yeah.
trying to do full-time work and full-time nursing school
Yeah.
is difficult.
Yeah, I don't think I knew traveling nursing was a thing too. I don't know if that would have changed my mind back in the day. I see all these, like, man, I could have went to like, California for a while, and then
Yeah, 6-month contract going from place to place.
yeah. When policing
would've
gets
been
hard,
nice.
I'm like, man, did I make the right decision? But no, I love policing.
The only problem was, though, if you'd have done those traveling, you'd have never settled down anywhere. So you might have actually not got bored. but
Yeah,
lost
maybe,
your roots.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Where's Devonta? Oh, he's in California. Where's Devonta? Oh, he's in Oregon. Where's Devonta? He's in Illinois. Boom, boom.
Maybe. I mean, policing has been very rewarding, though. I love it. I love it.
And it's interesting because a lot of times you hear people are inspired to go into law enforcement at a young age, and yours was actually during your college years, though. So that is
Yeah.
very different from the norm.
Yeah.
So.
I think I didn't know like everything that they did. I mean, just like everybody else, I don't think people really kind of think about everything that police officers actually do. I mean, you just see them like pull cars over and things like that, but
Right.
you don't really see those other things unless you're a child and you were raised in a household where there was domestic violence and you saw the police officers come there and save
Right.
you and talk to you and things like that. But if you didn't have that and your only interaction with the police is just seeing them like pull people over and take people to jail, that you just think that's what police officers do.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned a lot of your friends were firefighters, and in a lot of larger cities, there are fires to fight. In some of the smaller cities, they're showing up to traffic accidents. People want to become firefighters to become fighting fires, and they find that 95% of the time, they're handling traffic accidents.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the bigger cities, a lot of times they do like fire and EMS, so they end up doing a lot of EMS calls. So there's a lot of my friends that they end up becoming paramedics and things like that.
Which is a good thing too, because
Yeah.
paramedic, firemen,
Yeah.
they get all that mixed together.
Yeah. But like you said, there's not fires all the time, so they're not.
I'm glad there's not, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is a good thing.
But so I know we talked about it more, but so now you went into law enforcement. So tell us how many years total now and where you are today.
Yeah. So I am coming up on 7 years here in law enforcement now. So it's been a while. I started off policing up in Atlanta. I was a patrol officer there. Then when I came up to Ohio, there was a little bit of a transition period of getting my certification transferred over. So in the meantime, up here, I did like corrections.
Okay.
Um, and then after the academy, I worked the road for a while. And then last year, I became a school resource officer, which has been a whole new thing for me. And then I was also on the SWAT team. I'm also on the SWAT team as well. So do a little bit of everything in law, in law enforcement. The school thing is new. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's something that's completely different. I didn't think that I would end up as a school resource officer. I was like, I don't know if I want to be that guy. Like I like the road. That's why I became a
Right.
police officer. But then you really have an impact like in the schools to these kids. Like, they come from troubled homes and like I said, I didn't know much about what police officers did, and a lot of these kids didn't know. But now they see me and they're like, "Oh, that's my buddy. That's Deputy Richardson. He's a pretty cool guy." So,
Well, and you get to talk to children in a controlled environment for them.
yep.
There's no fear for them. I mean, some of them have a stigma in their mind based on a preconceived notion that someone may have shared with them with family members and stuff. So, how is that for you? Do you have what kind of conversation do you have with the children who, when they first see you, are going with the mindset, "Oh, mom, dad said don't talk to police officer. You're gonna get in trouble." How do you break that wall down with the kids in the school?
So a lot of times the kids, right, they automatically associate you as a police officer. Either they're going to get in trouble or something like this.
Right.
As I tell them, like, I'm not the school administrator. I'm not there for the administration violations. Like you're talking loud in class. Like I will assist if they ask me, but that's not really my role. All right, that's
Right.
the school's role. I'm there for criminal things and safety things. But if it's not any of those matters, then I'm more of like just a mentor. And so, you will see that like when you first get there are some kids, maybe their parents tell them not to like cops. They don't like cops for whatever reason. And you just kind of walk
Right.
up, "What's up, man? How you doing?" You just talk to them and they may be a little standoffish. But the more they see you, the more that barrier gets broken down. And the more like they see other kids coming up and talking to you, you having a relationship with them, like you're in the cafeteria with them every day. You're just kind of, you know, you just start the conversations with them every day, and that barrier slowly like breaks down, and then they're just like they're excited to see you. They dap you up in the hallway, then you're like all of a sudden you're just their best friend. They're like, "I love you, like you're my best friend. I love when you come dap me up." And I don't even realize it sometimes until like I get a card or something. It's like, "You're my favorite. I love when you dap me up in the hallway." And I'm like, "Oh, well, look at this kid."
That's cool, right?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
do you ever have the parents come in? We have to break that same barrier because obviously parents can come in after defending the child, or something is like I said, it's not a crime, or it could be various reasons parents will come to school. So do you
Yeah,
ever
that
find that you're actually having that same conversation and letting them see, hey, listen, I'm here as like a mentor. I'm not here
yeah.
to arrest your child.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Like a lot of times I'll get parents that are like, their first instance is just like, "I don't want him talking to my child. I don't want you talking to my child, because I don't want them to," which is understandable. Like, I don't want them getting caught up in the legal system or any of that stuff. And I usually just break that down. I look at these kids, all of these kids, like they're my kids. I have kids,
Yeah.
So I talk to them like my kids. I'm like, "Hey, man, you better get it together. Like, you're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna do this." So I'm talking to them, and I think the parents can kind of pick up in my conversation when I'm talking to them that I really have the best interests of their kids in mind. And so
Yeah.
usually by the end of the conversation that I have with the parents, they're like, "Oh, I kind of like this guy." And now it's getting around to the point where like I have grandparents in the community. They'll
Really?
come, yeah, the grandparents. They're like, "Oh, that school resource officer up there, my kids just love him." Or because the kids would go home and talk about the
Right.
school cop and this and that. So that barrier just has slowly been breaking down and breaking down. But every now and then you do get that come up.
That's for good. Now, how often, though, again, small rural town,
Yeah.
how many of them recognize you out in public when you're out in the grocery store and you're out, out with your own family, you're doing something? They
I
recognize you?
think sometimes that I like to disguise myself well when I'm off duty, but I am the
Cops always, they
person. I'm
say
the only.
cops always recognizable.
Well, I'm the only black deputy here in the sheriff's office. I think I'm the first one to work here. There's not many black people here, so as much as I like to think like I'm incognito and then I'm in the grocery store, everybody knows me. So, they may not say something, but they all know me here. So
They all know you.
you know,
But that's you can take it one of two ways. They all know you for good, and they all know you for bad, right? But
Yeah.
you're not doing bad, so it's like
Yeah.
all right. And then when they need help, they know you,
yeah.
right? So that's cool.
And I think
So
everybody kind of knows. I mean, that's the thing about small town. Everybody kind of knows, like all the cops here. I mean, it's just you just can't help but know everybody who works in law enforcement because it is such a small town. So, but there's never. I was worried about that because coming from a big city, like you're worried about your safety. Like you see somebody you arrested, but I don't really have any of those concerns here. I mean, it's yeah. So
Yeah, that's a good thing then. That's good. And you mentioned you like to be kind of incognito when you're off duty, but
yeah.
so when you're not wearing a uniform, what do you like to do off your days off? Like, what do you like to do for fun? What's your go-to on the weekends or days? I say weekends because I figure school resource officer.
Yeah, weekends. Yeah. So, when it's warmer out, I am in Ohio. We get a lot of snow and things like that here. So you don't want to be outside then. But when it's warmer, I like to go down to like little festivals and like live music and stuff like that. So I look for like little festivals in the area. Like I usually go to one up in Pittsburgh every summer. I'll find like little ones in the area that I'll take the kids to because it's just something to do. Get out the house, get some live music, see all the stuff. They have stuff for kids. You get the music. Then during the winter months, obviously I don't get to go out that much. So I like
winter in Ohio different than winter in Atlanta.
Yeah. So I've picked up like watching animes. See, I watch a little bit of anime. They're like 20-minute episodes, and I like them. So I'll sit there and I'll watch those, and like that gets me by. I love those.
All right. So. Now, are you a gamer too? Are you inside?
I am not. I am not a gamer.
Okay.
I spend a lot of time working on my business and things like that. But so I feel guilty sometimes when I'm just watching TV or something. So when I watch anime, they're on like 20-minute episodes. I'm like, this isn't that bad. And all the stories are pretty good too. It's like the storylines are like it's some guy who wants to be great, who wants to do something good, but he absolutely sucks. And everybody's like, you suck. But he has this dream and this vision, right, to do this thing. And it's just him. You just see him working, right? He's just, I believe that I can do this. And then he does it, and you watch him do it. So I'm like, oh, that's me. I put myself in those shoes. So it's a little bit inspirational too as well. So I don't feel bad.
I think you're the first person that told me that anime becomes an inspirational show.
It does. I tell people that all the time. It depends on like which ones you watch, obviously, but that's how a lot of them are.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when you are watching shows, whether movie theater, home, what's the last movie you saw at the theater though?
Oh, the last I don't go to the theaters too much. The last one I went, it was not very good. I think I took my kids to see Little Mermaid, and I was like, oh, they're gonna love the movie experience. They're like 3 and 2. They did not. They were like terrified. Like the IMAX, it was like, boom, 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 and then the last one that they released. It wasn't animated. It was like the real life, and they were just like,
yeah.
No.
I think you're probably the first person that can go on record and say, I gave my children nightmares watching Little Mermaid.
The movies. I thought this would be a great experience, and it was not that great.
Yeah. They wake up, Daddy, Ursula's coming through the walls.
Yeah. We were not in there very long because they were just like, no, it's dark. First of all, it's dark in there when you walk in. Then it's just like they don't know what to expect. Then it's sensory overload, this big screen, and then boom, boom.
And then you have the challenge, not just of the movie, but keeping 2 young children sitting down at a movie theater. Candy doesn't work because after a few hours, that doesn't there, right? Yeah. Candy gets sugar in them. Popcorn, then it's a mess. There's nothing.
Being a new parent, I didn't really realize that with toddlers. Like, they're just going to sit there and run around and throw popcorn at each other, and it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. So we haven't been in very many movies since then.
For understandable reasons.
We do that at home now. I think that's a little bit of an older kid thing when they can sit there and actually watch the movies and everything.
So what movie have you guys been able to sit down and watch at home and say, all right, now this is what you're supposed to do in a theater? What was the last movie?
I don't know if we watch any of them all the way through. I mean, we kind of have like Frozen on. That's on repeat for a long time. Like we have the Disney Plus going, and they'll watch like little movies on there. But Frozen was like a big one for a long time. We still sing the songs. Kids love that.
And you mentioned all these movies like Little Mermaid, Frozen. I bet you all noticed. You know all the songs too.
Yeah, sometimes I'll catch myself sometimes the kids annoy me, and sometimes I like to annoy them back, and I'm singing like Frozen. Yeah, when they're doing something and they're like involved, I just start busting out the Frozen on them. Do you want to build a snowman? Like, Dad, stop! I'm like, no. Do you want to build a snowman?
Well, the thing is, in Ohio, when you say that, it literally could be true.
Yeah.
It really can.
Yeah, especially this. We've had a pretty rough winter this year. This is like the worst winter I've had since I've been up here. There's been a lot of snow.
Yeah, and you had some pretty frigid temperatures come through too. Mm-hmm. It's been bad that way.
Yeah, but it's everywhere too, because in Texas and even in Georgia they had snow this year. It's been a rough winter.
Well, heck, I mentioned I live in Florida. North Florida got like 6 inches of snow.
Yeah, it's been everywhere this year.
Yeah, I don't think in the 30 years I lived in Florida I had 6 inches. I don't have 6 inches. I know I didn't have 6 inches combined where I lived. I lived in the Central Florida region, and the fact that they got 6 in one overnight storm.
Yeah, look at all
Unreal.
those videos of those people's out there doing crazy things because they've never seen the snow and like, what they don't have any plow trucks and watch people trying to plow and all this stuff is just kind of hilarious.
It is. And, I go back to the back in the years, people, and they still do it in Florida, I think, they put a Christmas tree on the beach during Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And that was always, you'd laugh about it. And it's like, yeah, well, what else are you going to do in Florida during the winter?
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
It's what it is.
Yep.
So, all right. So those are the kids' movies. Mm-hmm. For you, though, is there a favorite actor or actress? And you say, it doesn't matter if the movies had good ratings or bad ratings. They're in it. I want to watch it.
Probably Will Ferrell. I love like all of his movies. That dude is just, he always gets me going.
Yeah, he is good. My daughter's getting annoyed when I always throw out their quotes from Elf.
Elf, yeah. He's such a good actor, man. Any movie he's in, like, I'm like, okay, I'll probably check that one out.
Yeah, I don't know if he had bad movies because if the movie's not good, he still is.
Yeah, he
still plays the role.
Yeah. So
that's
I love
cool.
seeing him.
All right, so we talked about some of those pieces of it, but this question's kind of a curveball. But we're talking about you embarrassing your kids, you're having some fun, you're doing all the things the dads do. But what has somebody said about you? What kind of rumor has someone said? Devonta, and they whispered to someone. What kind of rumor have you ever heard about yourself? You're like, where did that come from? Anything that comes to mind?
No, I can't think of anything crazy. I'm sure there's probably been some out there, but no, I can't think of any that comes to mind right away.
What about one maybe you created? Have you ever self-created something about yourself so people are like, oh, that's pretty cool? But your self-created image.
No, I've always liked to stay under the radar as much as I can. So like I like to just go do my thing and then just kind of come home. So
Right.
yeah, I like to stay a little low key. So no,
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
But we talked about the characters. You're over there singing. Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah.
But let's put you. Here's the chance. Like Devonta, who do you want to be today? Favorite character for a movie? A superhero? Not anime. We're gonna take that one aside. Who do you want to be? You can be like Superman, even if not Superman. You can go into phone booth, come out, whoever you want to be.
I'd probably have to go with. So we were nerds, and I was a little bit of a nerd in high school, and all my friends, we all had like superhero. We all gave each other like superhero identities. I was the Hulk because I was always had this like kind of stocky, muscular kind of build. So I was the Hulk. One of my friends was like. What was he? He was Thor, and then we had a Superman. We had a Batman. We had all these characters. I was the Hulk. So if I had to like be a superhero, I'd probably be the Hulk.
That works.
That's always been my go-to. That would be me.
And it's the Hulk of like the Lou Ferrigno Hulk, the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
we were back then when I was like in high school. That's when like all the Marvel Avenger movies were coming out and Captain America. Yeah. So we were going to those movies like all the time. It seemed like they were coming out back to back to back. So
yeah, they did.
Yeah, the Iron Man's, Captain America's, and the Avengers and all that. So we were like all into that. And so we had to give all of our friend group, everybody had to be like a superhero, and I was the whole...
I think the movie industry realized they can make more money by each action hero having his own movie or her own movie versus throwing them all in one.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, that's what it was. All the heroes were in one show. Mm-hmm. And now, like you said, they have movies. And even
the way they did it was pretty good. Like, they built it up. Like, they gave everybody their individual stories. Like, Captain America had his movies. Iron Man had his movies. And then, they kind of threw them all together. It was, yeah.
They've done a good job with it. They really have.
They did.
And we're talking about action heroes that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're still reinventing them to an extent. Yeah. And young kids are gravitating towards them.
Yeah.
So, all right, so these are the fun parts of life. But, law enforcement officers go through challenges just like everybody else. And, in this podcast, we like to say that you're just like you and me. And we don't mean we're police officers. We mean that life's trials, life's tribulations, right? There's things that we go through. So for yourself, what is, a personal challenge that you can share with us that you've had to experience while navigating the career as a law enforcement officer?
Yeah. So I feel like I just have to talk about this because this is the biggest challenge that I've had. So shortly after I came up here, right, I was finishing up the police academy, and then I got divorced, and that was like a huge thing because I'm from Georgia. All my family's from Georgia. Right, we have kids in our marriage, and so that was like a huge thing. And I was like, how do I deal with? I don't know anybody up here. Like, I just started the sheriff's office. Like, I haven't even finished academy yet. That was like a huge challenge, and so. yeah, that was a huge challenge. And so the sheriff's office really just kind of stepped up and like helped me out. Like one of the sergeants opened up his home to me, and like
Wow.
the sheriff's office has given me like everything that I've needed. At one point, I needed babysitters when I had the kids. I have the kids a lot more. My chief, like he's calling people like, "Hey, we need a babysitter."
Seriously?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, he sent me a text message. He's like, "Yeah, I got you some babysitters here." Like when I needed a place to stay, they were like, "All right," my chief took it upon himself. He was like, "We got you. Don't even worry about it." So he's like, "All right, this is where you're gonna
That is
stay. This is how much it is," which is like very affordable. It's like, "We got you. We're taking care of." And then the people in the office, like, they're like, "Do you need anything?" During the holidays come up, they invited me over. I mean, they've like God is really taking care of me. Like I couldn't ask to be like in a better environment at a better sheriff's office. I mean, it really was like a family. And I was like, man, like I don't even know these people here because I was in
Yeah.
the police academy, but I wasn't like I worked in the jail there. Then I was in the police academy, but I was away from the agency like the entire time. So they didn't really know me like that then. Right. And I was like, oh man, I'm this new guy. I'm causing all these problems. Like they're gonna hate me. Like this guy got all this drama. And it was the complete opposite, man. They were just like, we got you. Like, don't even worry about anything.
No, and that is awesome.
Yeah.
And not to say it would be different because if it was in Atlanta when the divorce happened,
Yeah.
you have your family there. But let's
Yeah.
say the family wasn't there. The department is so big, you're
Yeah.
just a number maybe. But
Yeah.
like so with Monroe County, you were an individual.
Individual,
They
yeah.
truly knew you,
Yeah.
right? And they got to
Yeah.
know you quickly. So, I mean, yeah, maybe the reason to be in Ohio is because someone knew there was a path coming up very challenging and
Yeah.
you had help.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't. It was just such a blessing just to be, like I was like, it was just such a blessing. Like they just went over and beyond for me, and I love this place, man. Great people, great people.
Now, that is phenomenal because that could have gone very bad, right?
Yeah.
When you're by yourself, you're isolated,
Yeah,
and when your children are with you, it's one thing. Your children are with you, then it's you, all your thoughts and your work, and
yeah.
we know with law enforcement, there's a whole set of separate challenges that come from the field, and when you're home alone, it gets dark,
Yeah.
and the fact that they kept the light on for you.
They did.
I feel like there's a hotel commercial, keep a light on for you, but they kept the light on for you and gave you that opportunity to stay on your feet
Yeah.
and support you and
Yeah.
support the girls and your son or the family, right?
Yeah.
And really, they took you in
They did.
as a new person.
They did, and it was a big challenge for me because in law enforcement, like we love to help others, but we don't really like to help ourselves too much. So having to
that's
ask for
not
help.
your guy's strength.
Yeah. Probably like guys in general, and it's like I really don't want to like ask these people for help, like I don't really want to do this. Like I know that this is what I should do and I'm supposed to do because this is what I would tell other people to do, but like I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I did it and it was the best thing ever, So
But you didn't ask for the help too. They saw the help was needed.
yeah, that's true.
So it's the reason you got into law enforcement. They got paid forward to you
Yeah.
when you got to Ohio.
Yep.
You know,
That's true.
that's awesome. But so you're in law enforcement now, and I'm glad you made it through that challenge. Like I said, you're happy. You seem like you're in a good place, right? You're doing things in life. You're having time with the family, and then you start to venture off. You say, "Hey, I'm in law enforcement, but I got this entrepreneur spirit." It goes back to high school selling candy, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that you get excited about with entrepreneur side of things, and how did that reference to law enforcement? Are there similarities, or are they just really that different?
There are some similarities and there's definitely some differences. You get that challenge aspect. Like I like that. You never know what you're gonna get. In law enforcement, I love that aspect. You go to work, and you say you may have your calls, your general calls and things, but you just never know how the day is gonna look in law enforcement. You never know where you're gonna end up. You're on a different side of the county or a different side of the city. You just never know. And entrepreneurship is the same way. Like you just never know what kind of challenges you're gonna face. Like something always coming up you got to deal with. But in a lot of ways, there are some differences. Being a law enforcement officer, we follow the rules. We follow the laws. There's written laws. Right? There are some gray areas there, but we strictly like follow the laws. We enforce the laws. Entrepreneurship, there's not really any rules. Like, you don't know what to expect. You just kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give this a shot. And you just deal with the challenges like as they come up. But I love that like in this entrepreneurship journey, like you have to like identify. There's always like what stops you from getting to that next level is you have to identify what your weaknesses are, and then you have to fix that. And so it's like this journey of just bettering yourself. Like some people have like a fear of man, which I had that a little bit. You're scared to put yourself out there, right? You create this thing, this product, whatever, but then there comes a point in time where you have to share that with the world, and you have to share that with the people you're closest to. Like, hey, I have this thing, and you have this imposter syndrome, or like everybody's gonna think I'm an idiot, everybody's gonna think I'm this or that, and you have to overcome that if you want to be successful, if you want to come to that
Yeah.
next level. So there's always like challenges like that, and it just makes you grow as a person. Like finding out what those challenges are, what those weaknesses are that you have, and then having to overcome those.
It's true. And, the obstacles are opportunities for improvement. Right? They're
Absolutely.
opportunities to grow.
Absolutely.
So, and we're going to go into, so you have the Candyland. Candyland. Candyman.
Yeah, Candyman. Yeah.
Candyman. Okay,
Yeah.
we got the Candyman business in
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
Then, when you moved to Ohio, you started another business.
Yep.
So, and then from there, you have the newsletter. So, can you tell us that journey from the business between the two law enforcement roles, and then what brought you to the newsletter today? Because I think the newsletter is phenomenal. I think the mission, the concept behind it is genius. And I'd love for you to tell us the journey and then share more about that mission and how officers are benefiting from that today.
So I suppose I've always had this like entrepreneurial spirit, like you said in high school, I was a Candyman, not Candyland, Candyman. So I kind of had that, and my great grandmother actually had a business, like a food vending business, and I was kind of exposed to that. Like we were out there at the different festivals, hence my love of festivals. I was out there,
Yep.
ice cold drinks, $1, selling the drinks. So I've always kind of had that there, and I think I kind of lost that like along the way, like after high school. But what really kind of sparked that again for me was when I worked in Atlanta. Like every year that I was there was an officer who was shot or either killed like in the line of duty. And this is supposed to be like a safer part of Atlanta where I was working, right? But we had somebody shot or killed in the line of duty almost every year. And I didn't piece this together until a little bit later. But what really did it in for me was like I saw these guys who were SWAT guys who like, they were like the tough guys, the macho guys, the guys you want to be like, right? And they did like almost everything right on the call, and they were shot. They didn't die, thankfully, but they were injured, and then like they couldn't work in law enforcement again. Like one guy was just shot like in the hand, but it was his gun hand where you carry a gun every day.
Yeah.
Eventually, like he had to find something else to get outside of law enforcement. So then I just kind of got my brain thinking. It's like, man, if something happens to me, right? What other skills do I have? Like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to provide for my family? Like, what am I going to do? I need to have something there. So obviously when you have that thought, it takes years to kind of come up with something like what can I do?
Right.
You're thinking about that, right? It gets the gears turning. So when I first moved up to Ohio, I did a junk removal business. That was my first real taste of like having my own like official business, like building a website, having customers, and figuring out either the transaction, all this stuff. That was where I really got my taste. And then I got divorced, so I had to give that up. And then after then, I was went through this transition period again of like, what can I do? What skills do I have? What do I like to do? What can I do? And you kind of think about that for a while, and you meditate on that for a while, and then you'll come with your answer.
Absolutely.
And for me, I started reading a bunch of like newsletters, like Morning Brew and things like that, where I thought it was like this genius idea where people could just kind of get their briefings, stay up to date on everything that's going on in crypto space or in business just in a few minutes. I was like, why don't we have something like this for law enforcement? And I recognized the need when I was in Atlanta. Like we had these roll call briefings. Out here in rural Ohio, we don't really have per se roll call briefings, and that's a big thing in like rural areas, that there's no roll call briefings and there's not a lot of stuff passed down to you, but you still have to know legal updates, and you have to know what's going on in police, and you're expected to know that as a police officer. But the problem is like guys get overworked. You're going to domestic, you're receiving information all day. Everybody wants to tell the police officer something, right? So you're processing this information all day. Then you got to write reports. So the last thing you want to do when you get home, right? You want to spend that time with your family, with your wife, with your kids. The last thing you want to do is go look at hours long of case law and then figure out how to interpret this. How does this apply to me? What are they saying with all this legal jargon?
The legal jargon is the problem more than anything else.
Yeah, it's like what's going on here? And so I was like, okay, I recognize these needs. And I was like, okay, what if there's a lot of cops that probably feel this way. So I created Welcome to the Street, mainly with like rural deputies in mind, where we do this research on all the recent case law, everything that's going on in law enforcement, the things that the bigger agencies are doing, and then we give it to cops and we make it easy to read. Whereas this, when their brain is so overloaded, like you can look at this one in a few seconds. You get a scenario to tell you how it applies to you. You know exactly what you need to know as quickly as possible, all that needs to know, and you got it. You're briefed for the full week. And so that was my idea behind creating Welcome to the Street, and that's something that we do, and we're really good at it.
Yeah, and you're so good at it
Yep.
that I think other newsletters people would be envious of your open rate. Can you share
Thank
with
you.
us? I mean, you're like I said, you've been doing this now for a little over a year, roughly, right?
Yep.
Tell the audience how often people are opening this newsletter, engaging with you.
Yeah. So we have about a 55% open rate. Right. So, which is pretty great. Everybody's pretty like engaged. Right. And I was thinking, like, do people really actually like look at this thing and they're reading this thing? But then we get our post, we'll put our like scenario based trainers in there, and we find that cops are like, they're clicking on the scenario things and they love it and they're leaving feedback like, dude, we love this thing. Great content, great job. And it's becoming a tool that officers use and like rely on. And so then that led us into like, okay, like how can we make this more accessible to more people? Like we know that everybody doesn't want to read, everybody doesn't want to go through their email. So we was like, okay, let's do a podcast now. It's going to be the newsletter, but we just go over it in audio format so these guys can listen to it on their way to work or while they're out of duty, and they still get briefed. And we can go into more detail because we have to be very brief in the newsletter because we want them to understand this within a few seconds. So that means we have to leave a lot of stuff out. So in the podcast, we can go in more detail into these topics. And so it works out great. We've had a lot of great feedback from it.
And the podcast is Welcome to the Street.
Welcome to the Street. That's it.
And I think there's two parts to that because there's a lot of different types of ways that people learn. Well, a few core, but if I read something in the morning and it's too long, I'm probably going to lose the thought, right? But if you hit those key points on there and I read it, like, okay, now it's got my mind thinking. And then the next day, because your podcast comes out on what day?
Tuesday.
Yep.
The newsletter's on Monday, podcast on Tuesday.
Right. So Monday I read it. I'm like, all right, it's in my mind. My mind's working. Devonta shared with me what I need to know going to this week.
Yep.
And then Tuesday, the podcast reinforces it, but then fills in my gaps.
Yep.
And a lot of us learn in different ways, right? So where someone could read a book and bam, they know it. Someone else has to see it. Someone else has to hear it. So I think you're doing a great thing with that because officers are becoming better. And I think your partner talks about they're informed, they're confident, right?
Yep.
So the fact that they're able to go out there and feel confident in what they're doing.
Yep.
And then there's some additional benefits though to your podcast. Would you like to share those with us as well? I think you have some additional benefits because I know you've had some episodes where you've had individuals invited on live shows where they've shared additional details to help law enforcement officers really stay out of difficult situations maybe.
Yeah, so we have like so many different guests that come on with so many different expertise. So we love to bring different cops on. So this past week we had an internal affairs investigator come in. So then he gets to show these cops like the opposite side of how things look and the correct way they should be doing things. And then we have like Eric Tong comes on, and we have different people comes on that talks about like side businesses or things that law enforcement officers should be having, like the ways they should be investing their money or things like this to kind of give them extra tools outside of what you would normally think. Like sometimes we have like wellness people come on. So we like to give them all types of tools so they can be prepared.
And then the newsletter is free.
Yep. The newsletter's free. Yep.
So, you have a situation now where individuals can go to your website, which is welcometostreet.com.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And sign up for the newsletter. Boom. Mondays in the inbox every day.
Yep.
But now if they want to listen to the podcast, where do they go?
Anywhere you find a podcast, just type in Welcome to the Street. So Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you like to get your podcast from, all your mainstream platforms, we are there.
That works. And then do you have additional subscriber opportunities available for individuals who want to get additional information that you're offering as well?
As far as
do you have any premium membership, subscriber membership for individuals also?
We do. So for cops who want to go a little bit more, we do like a monthly webinar where we usually bring in like an expert to teach cops a little bit more. And that's our premium offering. So like the first one we did was teaching cops how to transition, how to use their skills from going from cop to corporate, right? So a lot of cops have the mindset, like you said you listened to another podcast I was on where I was like, I'm just a deputy, right? A lot of cops like, I'm just a cop. I don't have any skills. But one thing that opened my eyes, like after we did that webinar, is like as a cop, like you have to communicate with people daily. So like you're an expert, like communicator, problem solver. You have all these skills that you don't even know. If you're an FTO, you train people, right? You know how to train people. So there's a lot of jobs out there for law enforcement to transition into. So we like to give back in other ways like that. We did one like dealing with First Amendment auditors, what happens if you're being harassed at your agency or you get a false complaint. So just for cops who want to take that step further and learn a little bit more, we do those webinars and we bring in an expert because I don't know all these things. We bring on somebody else, right? So you don't have to go pay $500 to go sit at this course, right?
Yeah.
We bring the expert to you. Obviously, it's in a group setting, so they can't be individual with everyone, but it's a smaller group setting, so everybody can get that information.
And that's excellent. And they can get more information about that on the website as well.
Yep, just go to welcometothestreet.com. Yep.
All right. And then you have guests on your show. You have experts on your show. I'm sure there's going to be people who want to be on your show.
Yeah.
So, I keep saying we go back to the website. Is the website the core source of information to even if they want to be a guest, or should they reach out to you directly somehow?
Yeah, you can go to the website and just if you subscribe to the newsletter, you can reply to one of the emails, and that comes directly to me, or you can go to my email is Devonta. I'm sure you'll have my information in the show notes, but it's Devonta at welcometothestreet.com. That's my email. You guys can just reach out to me, and yeah, just reach out to me. We'll gladly have you on.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal podcast. I really do. And
thank you.
And I've complimented the intro is phenomenal. I heard you created that all yourself.
I did. That's the entrepreneurial spirit. It's like a lot of things you don't know how to do, but that's where you just have to either get on YouTube and learn, or you have to, go into your pocket and pay somebody to do it for you. Like those are your only two options. You can't just be like, I don't know. That's not an answer, right? You got to somehow figure it out. You know this. You have a podcast. You just either got to tough it out or pay somebody else to do it for you. So
yeah, go through some of the bumps and bruises along the way.
Yep, that's it.
But I think what you said about the career part is really, really interesting, because most people have trouble articulating the transitioning of a skill they have to the resume.
Yes.
Because if someone says, what do you do? Everything you think about is law enforcement focused.
Yep.
But if you just take the word law enforcement off it, every one of those skills are what employers want to hire people for.
Yeah.
And like critical thinking, problem solving, communication. Those are some of the top 3 skills. Emotional awareness.
Yep.
You guys have to have emotional and situation awareness all the time.
Yep. And cops don't even realize it because it's just it's normal to them. This is just what they do every single day.
Yeah, it is true. It's one of those things. But now there are lots of podcasts out there. Why should they be calling Devonta Richardson? Why should they be going to welcometothestreet.com? What makes yours different from the others who are trying to talk to them about all the different things that they can do to be better in law enforcement and make these transitions?
I think what makes us different is our focus, right? We want to give you this information, but we recognize there's so many things in society trying to compete for your attention, right? You got TikTok, you can get stuck on there for hours, right? The ads are literally designed to keep your attention. So what we do a good job of versus everybody else is making this information easily digestible. Like you get it and you look at it and get it as soon as possible. Like even with the podcast, we try to keep it brief to give you these sections, to give you what you need to know in the easy to digest format, because it is a real problem for cops, that information overload. You're dealing with, you're going to domestic complaints, everybody's telling you their problems all day. There's so much here. So cops, when you get home, you don't want to deal with that mess anymore. Like you don't want to look at that stuff, but it's still important. You still have to be educated. You still have to know what's going on. And so you're not getting this from some attorney who's going to give you all like the legal jargon. It's like, oh my God, my head hurts. This is just more information. I can't take this. So we give you that information where it's easily digestible, like from cops, right? We don't have these huge legal degrees or any of this stuff. We're just use plain talk like we do in our reports, and we give you this information. We even get creative by giving you a scenario to use so that way your brain can kind of process it. Okay, I get how this relates to me. I'll get how I would apply this in real life.
That's awesome. Yep. Because I think that a scenario creates an example people can relate to.
Yep.
And then, and they also can use that example, probably reflect back on a previous experience and think about, wow, I did it right, or I could have done this differently.
Exactly. Yeah. Because people are always thinking like, I get what you're saying. This is good, but how does this really apply to me?
Right. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Now we haven't talked about it because we talked about the school resource officer portion, but the SWAT operator, how do you find time for that one? Like, how does that work with your schedule?
You fit it in little bitty pieces. So obviously we do our training, right? But still, you got to get outside of that. You have to do a lot of dry firing and stuff outside of that. So you just find like the way that I find to do it is just you just find little pieces here and there. Like when I get ready for work, it's part of my drills to do like some dry firing routines, right? How quick can I get? I make it a little game. How fast can I get out of the holster, right? I used to have a little. Like I drew like a marker, like the ones you can wipe off like the dry erase markers.
Yeah, dry erase. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that on my door for a while. I just drew like a little red square. And so I just practiced my draw firing there. So I just do like little 10, 20-minute intervals like here and there throughout the day. There's time, you just fit it in. And those little 10, 20-minute increments, they add up over time.
Okay.
All right. Sometimes I'll walk around my house and I'll like clear the building. Like, when I'm going to the bathroom, I'm like, how would I clear this bathroom without getting shot? So I'm just making like little games and stuff like that.
I'm just imagining that one day you have the blinds partially open and you're actually doing that, and some neighbor calls the cops thinking that someone in the house.
Yeah, I'll find like if my kids are with their moms, like I'm clearing their bedroom. Like, well, there's a bad guy in here. I'm just practicing this, and it helps too with the school because the school buildings when you're going into classrooms stuff like that. That's a huge thing. So I like to practice like just clearing my bathrooms, clearing all the rooms in my house, going down to the basement. Like how would I do this? So you can make it games, and you can kind of incorporate that training throughout the day.
No, and that is awesome. And but talking about rural America, how much activity do you get from the SWAT standpoint in a rural America versus, I don't want to say traditional policing versus SWAT? Like how much difference?
Not a lot. I mean, not a lot. We spend a lot of time training, which is that's a good thing. We have a lot of time to train, so I'd say we are very well trained because we spend a lot of time to train, but we don't get that much field experiences like, let's say, a SWAT team out in Atlanta somewhere.
Right.
So, but we are on a task force, so that does help out with. We get to work with different counties and things like that, so that does help out as well.
Yeah. But the training though is necessary because if you didn't have that training when it's go time, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you'd rather have all the training sometimes and not have to actually go into action.
Yeah.
Because that means there's good things happening, right?
Yep. That's a good
or bad things aren't happening. Either way you want to.
Yeah, either way you want to look at it. Yep.
So when you think about your role in law enforcement during this journey, what do you think that there's something that you could say, you know what, there's one thing that people who are not in law enforcement, I can identify with? What is something in life that you say, you guys go through this probably every day. It doesn't matter what your job is. If you're a policeman, fireman, first responder, or you're a teacher, a janitor, construction worker, what do you think is something that a relatable challenge?
I'd say dealing with people. Everybody has to deal with people. And sometimes like people get on your nerves, right? Sometimes you have to learn that like in law enforcement is just like, because you still have to be a professional. I think a lot of people do it a lot of jobs, right? Because cops, you've seen those videos of cops like losing their temper and things like that. But you can't really do that in this world because it's highly scrutinized. But I think that's something that we have in common with everybody else is that we're just people. Sometimes we have bad days where we just don't really like to deal with people, and like we just kind of want to be in our show. Like we don't even want to make any job stuff, so we just don't want to deal with people, right? So learn to manage, and I think that's something that everybody has in common across their jobs. Like you just have those days where you just like you don't really want to be around people as much, or you just have a bad day in general. I think everybody can have that, relate to that.
And I think you're in a very special piece of that, because being a school resource officer, it's hard to have a bad day because you have 1,000 eyes looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you always want to be on the game where you want children to see you in a role model style role. You want them to see you as a positive influence in their life. And if the one thing you need is to have one bad day when it's the kid who sees you, his parents told him, cops are bad, police officers are bad, and then that's your one bad day.
I think it's hard to have a bad day when working with kids too, though, because they're just so. I have in my school, it's like pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So you see those kids.
You get the
man,
whole
those
gamut.
You
get all of it.
Watching those kids, man, those kids are so silly. Like, they're always doing something stupid because they're kids. So I go in there, you may like have a bad day, but then like these kids, they do something stupid and you just can't do nothing but laugh. Like they're just kids. So dealing with them, or they'll make some face at you when you walk in or something, you just can't help but laugh. Working with kids are such a joy.
Did they ever challenge you on the basketball court, to challenge you in any competitions? Did they ever try to say, Deputy Richardson, come on?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. My basketball skills is not a hidden talent. It sucks. So I talk my trash, and I'll be like, oh, another time I'll get you. I talk my trash, but yeah, basketball. We did something, a funny story on that. We have this place called Mako. It's for people with special needs, right? And we do a lot of activities with them, and they have like an event they invited us to, and we play like a game of horse in basketball. It's where somebody like makes the shot, and then you got to imitate exactly what they did and make the shot.
Okay.
And I was so bad that the kids, the students there, the special needs students, are like, I finally made a shot. They were like, "Yay, you made a shot! You can do it!" And I was like, "I'm supposed to be the one encouraging you, but I'm so terrible." These kids are like trying to make me feel better about myself.
That-
So I don't challenge people to mini basketball games at the school.
that's pretty cool. But like you said, the kids make your day.
Yeah,
right?
they do. They do, man.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And you're connecting with the kids in the community.
Yep.
In the school system. But how do you think law enforcement can continue to build those bridges? How can we continue to see? There's a lot of theories. Some say build the culture within the department, and the officers will go out happier. Others say continue to get more involvement, like old school policing. Be on the beat, go into the shops, go into the businesses, and talk to the folks. What's your take? How do you build those relationships from I'm an officer, you're the community, together we are more effective working together?
I think a lot of those old school officers have it right. I remember this one cop said to me, he's like, the worst thing that could happen to law enforcement is air conditioning. he said the reason I probably had the thought that many people have is like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But he was like, you used to have to roll through the communities and through the neighborhoods with your windows down. And so people are outside, you're talking to people, but now everybody has the windows up, and the windows may be tinted. So cops always have their windows up. Nobody can see who the actual officer is. You're not talking to anybody, right? So I think those old school cops kind of have it right, like getting out of the car, going into like your local businesses and talking to people, just getting the clerk's name, like just remembering their name, something that simple, starting a conversation with them, like it goes a long way. And then another thing that I think that works is just explaining what you do to people. Like you don't really have to explain to people the extra steps why you're doing what you're doing. Like you see people recording you and they're like, "Oh, why did you yell at him like this?" Or why are you taking him to jail? He didn't do nothing. We used to get that a lot in Atlanta. Like, you get your bystanders there and then like, because the person you arrest, and a lot of times they're a manipulator, right? So they like to get people on their side. Like, I didn't, dude. They're screaming out. The cop is just put your hands behind your back. You don't know this guy just beat his wife and kids or something, but they're like, I didn't do nothing. These people, they're just trying to take me to jail. And then people are like, yeah, what are you guys? You guys are just trying to take him to jail. And the cops are just so annoyed. Yeah, right there with the camera. And so a lot of cops will just do their business and go. But I think, just taking the time, like you don't have to, but just taking the time to explain to people, like, obviously you can't give away all the details, but explaining to people why you did what you did. I used force because of this or this reason, right? We did things this way. It may look crazy to you because of this, or even explain to the person you're taking to jail, this is why I'm doing this. And I think when people have that knowledge, then they can look at it from a different perspective. They understand, oh, that's why you did that. And I think that's one thing. Explaining things, education.
I think that's valuable, and it's spot on because, unfortunately, I been pulled over as a kid, enough time driving the car, and and I've had the benefit of that. Officers, some tickets, some no tickets, but they was explaining. Do you know why I pulled you over? Do you know what? Yeah. It wasn't just because of the speeding. It was because you changed lanes and did this. It was more the concern of what you're changing lanes than it was the speed you were driving. An officer. Nobody recently told me or recently listened to it was saying that we don't care if you're doing 70 miles per hour on the highway going straight as much as we care about the person doing 40 miles per hour swerving in and out of traffic. That's now reckless driving versus the straight lane speed. And, and I never thought about that part, just as a kid. But an officer explaining it to you, it makes you understand their way of thinking too. Yeah.
Another big one was like license plates, right? People like one thing we stop for down in Georgia all the time was like license plate light was out. And you get somebody like, they may say maybe they've had a bad day at work, right? And they're like, you really just pull me over for a license plate light? Like, don't you got better things to do? Like my taxpaying dollars. Or like, but I would take the time and explain to people sometimes like, yeah, my job is to run license plate. This is how we find stolen vehicles. So if I can't see your license plate, right, I don't know what if your car was the one that was stolen, right? And I can't see the license plate and I can't run it to, make sure everything is good. It's not a stolen vehicle or you're not a wanted person. Like this is how we get bad people off the street. We run license plates. So if I can't see it, that hinders me from doing my job. And I'm not trying to write you a ticket for it. I'm going to let you go on about your day, but I'm just telling you just to get that fixed because if one day your car gets stolen and we can't read the license plate because you don't have a license plate, then they're like, okay, I kind of get it now. But just taking that time to just explain those things, what you're doing, why you're doing those things, then it's kind of like, okay, well, I get it now.
Yeah. And I think people appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you had to do it over again, would you still choose a career in law enforcement though?
Absolutely. I think it's a very rewarding profession. It fits me. There's never like a boring day. I always enjoy what I do.
I wasn't sure if you're going to go that direction or say, no, you're going to be looking at me walking slick in my 3-piece suit, and I'm going to be owning an empire.
You know, if things go that way, I think I still would be in law enforcement. I'd be a reserve officer somewhere, still working in law enforcement because it is my passion. Like I feel like that is my way. Like I love going to those calls and I seeing people. I hate seeing people in crisis, but I like when they're in a crisis state and I'm the one that I can kind of share my life experience. Like it's okay. Like a lot of people, you're not the only one that's going through this. A lot of people have been through this. I can share. I've been through, something like this. It's okay. Like you're going to be all right. It's a bad day. Anytime you have law enforcement there, it's probably not a good day. But
right.
There's better days ahead. And then seeing people like come down and like, okay, you're right. Like you can't put a price tag on that, man. I love those experiences like that. And so I think the only way you can really get it is in law enforcement because it's so raw in the field. Like you see people like who are just going through some stuff, man. They're at their worst. Like the cops call at your house, and you can just offer like a little ray of hope. Like I don't think you can really get that in a lot of places. And so I'll always be in law enforcement in some fashion.
And I think the way you just explained it there, I'm guessing it's the exact same way you explain it to the person when you're talking to them. A calm, measured tone. And it brings, like I said, not just brings them down, but it makes it easier for you to have those conversations. It makes it easier to process the situation because if you go in there and it's high tense, or high pressure, you have to be on such a different level of alert. I mean, you're always alert as a police officer, right? But when that person comes down with you, now the room is ready to have the conversation.
Yeah. Exactly, because you can't do anything when you're in such that emotional state, and so you really have to kind of, like you said, bring people down, lower that tone of voice. My training's kicking in. You lower that tone of voice, and you just and people will just automatically kind of come down to your level. It may take a minute, but they'll come down to your level, and they'll chill out, and then once they calm down, they can think things through a little bit more.
Yeah, then it's true. They say when you're at that high stress level, you're at that fight or flight. You're not processed in the same way, so you're.
Yeah, and that's one thing I noticed too when I was a rookie cop. Like, I'd go out with older cops, and they just had this chill, just like normal day. It's okay. Like the person looking for younger cops like, I need your license. Like I need your license right now. They're like when you're older cop, you just because you realize like that chill, calm demeanor like that brings the person down because they're stressed out. They had to call the police for some reason. Like they got a fraud call. They just got robbed, lost all their money, or they're in a domestic violence situation. But when you come there with that calm demeanor, relax, like, hey, things are okay, then it brings people down. And that's until you just pointed that out to me. I didn't realize like a lot of older cops, experienced cops do that and that's why.
Yeah. Either that or they've just slowed down their age.
Yeah, they've slowed down their age. But I think it all just kind of slows down for you the longer you've been doing it. Like it's just, it just slows down. For you. You get more relaxed in the position and things like that.
And except because when you're a rookie, you're ready to go.
Yeah,
in your mind.
Yeah, you're thinking you got all these things you got to remember. Like, you don't want to mess up this call. Like, I know I'm gonna get chewed out by my sergeant if I don't get this license information and I don't do this. Or am I investigating this right? What exactly does the law say? I know I'm supposed to stand this way so I don't get shot. And there's just so many things going on in your mind. You just trying to figure out how it all works, and it slows down for you.
And maybe you can tell if there's truth to this or not because. They mentioned standing a certain way. Yeah. I've heard theories about why officers touch the trunk of a car when they walk up to the window, when they pull somebody over. Is there a real reason they touch the trunk of the car, touch the back of the car before they make their way up?
Yeah, that's like, I don't know where that came from, but it's like this old thing. They used to, like older cops would teach it. Now they tell you in the academy, don't do that. That's stupid. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. Don't do that. But somehow back in the day, I don't know how this came about, but it makes no sense. They did always touch the back of the trunk, put your fingerprints on the car in case you get shot or something and you die, and then your fingerprints are on the car so they can identify you through your fingerprints on the car. And that is just not an effective way of doing things, but this is one of those things that just was ingrained in the culture for so long. And I'm sure at some police academy somewhere there's still some instructor teaching this, but now the kind of standard is like, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, I think you still see it like it's so ingrained in the culture. Like even in movies when they film cops doing traffic stops, you see them putting their hand on the trunk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've heard the theories of the fingerprint. I've heard the theory to make sure the trunk is closed.
Make sure the trunk's all the way closed because they just know they're going to get pulled over that day. So there's somebody in the trunk waiting on you because they know they're going to get pulled over that day. They're just waiting on it.
They're waiting.
Yeah.
I've heard those, and I've never really asked that question. So providing clarification is helpful.
Yeah, a lot of cops, you go to training now, they're like, don't do that. That's just stupid. We don't know where that came from, but don't do that. Yeah.
And then if you're in a state where it's, Arizona or South Florida, you're putting your hands on the car, you're burning your hands.
Yeah. I've been to 2 police academies now, and I believe the first time I went, that was taught to me. It was like, make sure that trunk's closed. You put your fingerprints on there. And the second time I went through there, like, don't do that. That's stupid. There's no reason. Like, these people don't know you're going to get pulled over that day. Most people are like surprised. You think they just have somebody there just waiting on you. This isn't a movie.
Yeah, they're the classic.
Yeah.
All right. So, we're talking about, officer safety there. And some of those things, some of obviously we're joking about the trunk, but certainly truth about where you stand, how you position yourself, and how you fix the situation. But the civilians, every day they're out there living their lives. What's the safety tip that you can offer them so that they should be able to practice every day and help keep themselves safe when they're going about the community?
This is a pretty basic one. I feel like it's such a cop response. But wearing your seatbelt,
All right.
because the free thing, like sometimes we take free things for granted. The things that are given to us, like our relationships and things like, we take those things for granted. Or a seatbelt, it doesn't cost anything to put on a seatbelt. It's super simple,
Right.
But it's something so simple that can so effective that saves your life. And still, you get people that don't do it. Like I think it's the stupidest thing when I see people who don't wear a seatbelt, and it's just because it's for you. It doesn't matter about the ticket or any of that stuff, but it's such a simple and a small thing that comes in every vehicle, but it's so powerful because I promise you, it will save your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You might get a bruise from the seatbelt, but I'd rather have the bruise than my head through the
And
windshield.
getting thrown out. A lot of times people get thrown out of the windshield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an easy safety tip, and there's not a single person that can't say if they get in the car and they're of a certain age that they can't put it on.
Yeah,
It's
such a simple thing, and a lot of people we take those simple things for granted a lot of times, and it's such a simple thing. It's such an easy thing that you can do every day. Make sure the people with you, the people that you love, even the people in the back seat, right? I think in Georgia, adults don't have to wear seatbelts in the back seat, but think about this, right? I heard somebody say this. You get in a car crash, right? 70 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour, even 40 miles per hour, and this person doesn't have a seatbelt. That's a missile flying through that car. They're going to go right into you. That is a missile, right? They're coming at you, and that could kill you. And a lot of times that does happen. So make sure everybody in the car is wearing their seatbelts as well.
So true.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, those simple things. Locking your doors.
Locking your door. Yep.
Right?
Oh, man, that would get so many people. There's these things we call crimes of opportunity. We don't really see it as much out here in the rural area, but we used to get a lot of times where people just pull door handles in the parking lot of Target or Walmart, and they just go in there. They just look for the ones that are unlocked. And it's such a simple way.
They don't need to have any tools with them to break them in. They're just literally easy opportunity.
It's such a simple way to not be a victim. I mean, obviously put your value, because they see something valuable and see you leave an iPad there, they're going to break the window and get it. But but they're just checking door handles. And so if you leave yours unlocked, it's such a simple way to prevent crime. But it's those simple things that we forget and we take for granted a lot of times.
Yeah. And because like I said, we don't reinforce them in our own minds. We just go about our daily life and that's it.
Yep.
I guess the good thing is now we can usually lock our cars with the remote, and as long as the car noise, it chirps a couple times, we know it's locked.
Yeah. It's still an issue out here in the rural areas that people don't really, it's not that big of an issue because we don't, a lot of times those crimes are teenage kids and things like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people.
But probably more vandalism with the kids, right? They're doing stupid young teenage kid stuff. They're not really car thieves.
Yeah, they're not really car thieves. I think those are crimes when you have your subdivisions and stuff like that. You get kids who are just need something to do, and they'll just go to different driveways and just pull door handles. We've seen it all the time.
Deputy Richardson, this has been a fun conversation. I've enjoyed this conversation, learned a couple things I did not know about. I'm glad I learned about the hand on the trunk is really not a real thing.
No.
I think what you're doing as the school resource officer, and one, I'll just say, I think every school in America should have a school resource officer. I'm a strong proponent of officers in every one of the schools. I just think there's so much that can be done for it. The positivity that is infectious from that you bring to the children. And that's not even related to being there protecting the school and protecting children. That's just the influence you have on the children that's invaluable. And the fact that you're able to connect with them at an age that they're already still able to absorb that and they're able to be influenced, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that's breaking down barriers now, because now we're in this culture where a lot of people don't like police officers, but seeing this younger coaches that come up, they've seen their school resource officers, they knew he was pretty cool. I think that's changing the culture and breaking down these barriers.
Yeah, and I think we need to get kids to see that being a police officer is cool again. So when they want to go to, what do you want to be when you grow up? Police officers back on that list as one of the top things again.
Yeah.
firemen get all the credit too. I know that, but policemen, firemen, we want to see those on there again because the media will tell you don't do it.
Right.
And it should be. I think what you've done with Welcome to the Street, again, the newsletter, the podcast, again, we know welcometothestreet.com people can go to, I think is a innovative idea that is phenomenal. Like you said, it's originally for rural areas, but the reality of it is every department in the country can utilize it. If I'm late and I miss the roll call in the morning, I can pull up your podcast and essentially get the roll call.
Yeah.
Right?
And like, as you know, not all supervisors are the same. So even if you do have like a roll call, they may not give you all that pertinent information that you need. So it's still on you to make sure you have all that information. You're updated.
Yeah, so I think that's phenomenal. And like I said, the fact that you branch it out with the podcast, and then you bring in the other element to give expert individuals coming on, so officers are hearing additional educational opportunities in a relaxed environment where it's not sitting here watching a PowerPoint presentation. Because I think we've all been in those trainings, and they're not fun. So I appreciate you, all you're doing with law enforcement, not just to influence the children and what you're doing in your role, but what you're doing to make law enforcement officers better. And I think, that's phenomenal. It's innovative. It's your entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm glad you've actually shared a glimpse into your life with us today. I don't know if I want to see you building a snowman or singing building a snowman.
You do not want to hear me sing. You'd be just as annoyed as my kids.
But taking the time to being on the to getting to know your local Leo segment, I appreciate it, and I hope more folks actually start to realize, and the more they listen to it, see that members of the community and law enforcement share some of the same challenges, and they can work together well and can share the same space and be effective together. So, again, thank you for taking the time to be on here and being a part of the Your Positive Lens podcast.
Absolutely, Scott. And before I get out of here, I just got to say I love what you're doing as well. I mean, just showing this positive light and showing that officers are just people too. We have lives, we have challenges just like everybody else. We're people, humanizing the badge. And so people like you and the podcast that you've created, I mean, it's a wonderful platform to do that, because like you said, we have to change that image of law enforcement, and you're not even in law enforcement and you're doing that. So it's amazing. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Absolutely. And definitely. And I hope that we can get back together probably some point in the future, especially as you grow more of the opportunities, and we'll continue to share what we're doing mutually together, right? We're changing different views and inspiring individuals. And again, I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. It was nice.
All right. Like I said, take care.
All right.
If you liked this episode, follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. Provide us your feedback in the comments and leave us a rating or review. We truly appreciate your opinion. And then follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook to get all the latest updates. Remember, you can always find places that will share negative law enforcement news stories. But here at Your Positive Lens, you will only find your positive law enforcement news stories. Once again, I'm your host, Scott T. Thanks for listening, and we'll capture you on the next